which is better. And as ophthalmologists, so many times we have the patients coming to us saying, doc, do the best for my eyes, which is the best refractive procedure. And we are in quite a dilemma at times what to choose. Many times it is governed by the machine which is available by us, by the technology we are familiar and comfortable with. So when we look at the procedures of SMILE versus LASIK, are we really trying to choose between two apples, or are we trying to choose between an apple and an orange? That's an important question to remember, because the steps are so different, the procedures are so different actually, that it almost appears to be unfair to try to compare them, except for the fact that they make the person get rid of the refractive error. So when we look at the SMILE, it's a single procedure, and sometimes I explain to the patient that you are going to undergo something like a keyhole surgery, and it's a small incision procedure, flapless, it is minimally invasive, so there's a minimal disruption of the corneal lamellae, and we also sever the nerves at only one side. So the structural loss chances are of course there, and there is a distinct learning curve. I think we'll be hearing another talk on that. And when we look at the basic procedure, so this is uses a femto machine along with an excimer laser. So there is a larger incision, of course, the flap is created, and with that comes a bucket load of problems related to the flaps. There is more cutting of the corneal nerves, and so of course there is more of dry eye in these patients. Something we don't realize is that the treatment for SMILE is based on the visual axis, whereas the SMILE for excimer lasers is often based on the pupillary center, right? Unlike also the vertex that Dr. Gaurav was talking about. So we should understand that by and large, SMILE is not a customizable procedure. You for Contura, Forcides, all these things coming in. It's not really possible to do that right now with the SMILE procedure. And it does not really use it. I'm talking mainly about VisuMax 500. VisuMax 800 has come, we'll be hearing more talks on that as well, which has certain advantages. So all these complex algorithms which are used by the excimer laser to correct the complicated refractive errors are not available on the SMILE platform. However, there are no flap-related problems, they are better biomechanics, and there's a dry in these patients. So just to demonstrate some of the problems, Dr. Rajesh has talked about some, flaps dry up, patient rubs the eyes, some minor trauma, you can have an aversion of the flap or some kind of a flap edge defect, we can have epithelial growth, we can have more infections in these eyes, DLKs, whereas with SMILE, especially in the initial phases, you might see some, the surgeon trying to center, and it's not centering properly, so recentered ablation is possible. Also, the risk of suction loss is there since the SMILE system is a low suction system. Therefore, the patient is actually able to see the target at all times, unlike a blackout that the patient has with some of the machines used to create a femto flap. VisuMax 800 I will not be talking about, but it does have some more advantages compared to the VisuMax 500. So, what about the quality of vision in these patients? So, I'm very impressed by congenital eye studies, and this was carried out by George Mehta from Singapore, and they had SMILE in one eye and LASIK in the other eye. So very interesting, but what it showed significantly was that both the uncorrected distance bifurcation acuity at 3 months and 12 months, actually at 12 months SMILE overscored, and the predictability was pretty good within plus minus 0.5 diopters and 0.1 diopters as well. The reason why we are bothered about vision with SMILE versus excimer is that they say that with the femtosecond laser, the interface may be a little bit rough. So you are having two rough interfaces, but because it fires with nanojoules of energy at a very high rate, we really have excellent and very good smooth interfaces that we've seen, we've found. So SMILE produced promising refractive outcomes in terms of predictability, efficacy and safety at both 3 and 12 months of follow-up, and especially when it was compared with SMILE surgery, LASIK surgery. Now, the best way to look at data is through meta-analysis or through compilation of the systemic reviews and studies and randomized controlled trials. So consistently, all these trials have shown that LASIK and SMILE have equal amount of predictability, efficacy, and comparable safety. There are few studies which have also noted that the total higher order aberrations in spherical aberration, so there are two major components of the quality of vision after refractive surgery, were in fact lowered with SMILE patients. So what happens when we look at high myopes? One is that at low myopia, many of these procedures work equally well. What happens at high myopia? I think the major advantage at high myopia is that if you're doing an excimer laser, you'll find that if the treatment is 20 seconds for low myopia, it will go up to 60 seconds. So that means that much more excimer laser ablation is being done. On the other hand, with the SMILE lens, the shaping does not take more time. If you are doing a -10 diopters versus I'm doing a -3 diopters, the amount of time taken is the same because it's just the shape of the lenticle that is being created that is different, right? So with regards to high myopia also, SMILE results were comparable to femtosecond laser even in the treatment of very extremely high myopia as regards to efficacy and safety of these procedures. Now, if we talk about post-operative complications like visual quality, dry eye, ectasia, risk. So multiple, some studies say one thing is better. Most of the studies are indicating that the total higher order aberrations and spherical aberrations are more with LASIK. Coma is more with SMILE, and that they say that there may be a problem in the centration. Patient is fixing with the visual axis, and if the surgeon is a little bit inexperienced, there may be some amount of coma induction with SMILE. So there is a smaller change in SMILE than LASIK, and there is a less degradation of the visual quality in these patients. Of course, dry eye, we expect the dry eye to be less with SMILE. It's such an important component of patient satisfaction in the final outcome of these patients. So corneal sensitivity, innervation, TBUT, all of these significant changes have been found to be affected less with SMILE procedure. Again, a very interesting publication from the John Mehta group, I think the same set of eyes. So they studied the corneal chemistry in SMILE versus LASIK. So they compared a clear proteomic and neuromediator profile. I think this is so important to understand what happens beyond what we really actually see on the slit lamp and ask the patient. So they had better Oxford Stevens scores and TBUT than most LASIK eyes. They did find that tear substance P and nerve growth factor levels were significantly higher in LASIK group. Because see how it matters in the healing of these patients. At the same time, there was a significant upregulation of leukocyte migration and wound healing, as well as the humoral immune response evaporates. So all these things are actually modulating how the patient will see, because the treatment is for life. It's not for, okay, how well does the patient see after 1 week? I think that's not an important criteria when we're treating these patients. So all of these changes were more in the patient eyes undergoing LASIK surgery. Ectasia, as expected, ectasia incidence is much lesser with SMILE compared to LASIK patients. It is comparable to PRK, maybe even much lesser than PRK. In a very interesting talk by Dan Ranson, he had presented data of 5,000 eyes. In his first 5,000 eyes, he had 3 patients of post-LASIK corneal ectasia, and each and every one of these patients was an avid eye rubber. So he says we should also insert patients of refractive surgery not to, or just gently rub or not to rub their eyes vigorously once they have undergone the refractive procedure. But tissue ablation SMILE appears to use more corneal tissue per diopter of correction. However, this is again a moot point. It's very difficult to actually have the real data for this. In one of our theses, we found that in the excimer laser, the ablation with topographic versus normal LASIK was the amount of tissue predicted was actually different. But it's very difficult to measure it. How do you measure the amount of tissue which is ablated? That's the problem. The enhancement rates are very similar to both SMILE and LASIK, but we know that enhancement can be at times complicated in SMILE. The best thing is to do a surface ablation to correct any residual refractive errors. Now, in our own study, which we carried out in PGI, so what we did is we used something known as the ray tracing. So this is eye trace that we use. So why eye trace? So this eye trace, what it does is, so it studies 256 individual points. So if you look at many of these aberrometers, what they do, they'll send in an array of light and study what is the distortion, and then take an aberrometry map out of that. But what happens with the night test is there are individual points fired, and then individual variations and aberration are then measured with these patients. So this is the advantage. It gives us very physiological data because people is relaxed, look direct the people, or the patient look at distant target. So it gives us a much more realistic and physiological parameters are measured. So we found in this that the outcome of smile and wavefront optimized laser were very, very comparable visually. They were including the post-op MRSE and sphere and cylinder. They were very, very comparable between the two groups. And also, significantly, we found that per diopter of correction, the total higher order and lower order emissions were significantly more with LASIK group. So this may have a significance in high myopes. If per diopter, the induction of aberration is more in LASIK group. This is something which we expected actually. Also, contrast function, there was not significant difference, but slight difference at mesopic contrast cycles. Otherwise, not the parameters, including the higher parameters like stir ratio, modulation, transfer function, and contrast intensity were comparable in the two groups. Also, the depth of focus was comparable. The change in Q value was per diopter was lesser in SMILE compared to LASIK patients. So, change in Q again, it has a relevance in high myopes. You are correcting -8 or something. If how much is the change in Q value induced per diopter of correction? So, this is similar to another publication recently, which was on corneal remodeling after myopic SMILE, and they also indicated that the changes in Q values of both the anterior and posterior surface in after refractive surgery were lesser in SMILE compared to LASIK patients. If we talk about dry eye patients, the Schirmer's value was affected much less in SMILE group versus LASIK, whereas OSDI was also affected less after SMILE versus LASIK. So conclusions. Both of the procedures had excellent efficacy. There were more total corneal aberrations per diopter induction in LASIK group, and the change of Q value was lesser per diopter in the SMILE group. So both of these procedures had excellent outcome. I did come across one article. This is the patient perception. Patient reported eye preference after refractive surgery. So in this particular study, it indicates that slightly more patients prefer topo-guided LASIK versus SMILE. So we have to take everything with a pinch of salt. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I don't know about anyone else, but you've given us more confidence to shift to newer technologies, sir. Thank you so much. I now request Dr. Lohit Om Prakash to give away the mic to Dr. Amit Gupta. If there are any comments, we can take it in